Markets are pulling back as today is September 1st, 2025. And of course, we know historically speaking, September, not only for Bitcoin, but the stock markets as well, this is the worst performing month. The only month that is bullish for the traditional market is on election years, which this year is not. This is over 10 years of data. The average return is negative 5.3%, followed by the best 2 of 3 performing months, which is October, which is the third best performing month, and November, which is the best performing month in all of cryptocurrency. So all eyes are going to be on September 17th when the Fed is expected to start cutting interest rates and expecting a lots of volatility. But let's talk about what the charts are saying. So in the micro, I'm starting to see a bit of Wyckoff accumulation for Bitcoin. We have started our markdown, our preliminary support, selling climax, and our secondary test in phase B. And of course, I'm talking about Wyckoff accumulation. Now, the big question for Bitcoin specifically is, so we've already gotten the preliminary support, selling climax, and secondary test in phase B. The big question is, are we going to get the phase C with a spring version, or are we going to get the phase C with an LPS version? Generally, from my experience, which this is the LPS version, from my experience, they're about 50-50. But the way that Bitcoin is leaning right now, we've already put in a lower low for the selling climax, and the secondary test in phase B seems to be a double bottom. You could almost say it's a little bit lower. So we'll see. Are we going to get the LPS? Are we going to get the spring? We have gotten across on the 5-hour to the upside. And on the daily, we're about to get across to the upside as well. It wouldn't be weird to go back to 106. That would be a back test of the prior range of the 200 moving average. If we were going to get the spring variation, I would anticipate us to backtest about 106,000. If we were not, I would anticipate us to start turning things around at about $108,000, $107,000 range. Now, there is a lot of support over here from December as well as through June and July. That's a lot of support for Bitcoin to go through, and I don't anticipate it to just violently go through there. So my anticipation is that we are going to find support very soon. The question is, what are the altcoins going to do? The next thing for Bitcoin would be getting it back to the top of the range. $113,000 is going to be a big level. And then getting back to the top of the range and fighting. Can we get into real proper price discovery like we had? But in my opinion, for Bitcoin, you can make a real argument that we are repeating 2020. On the top is from April of 2025 through present day. And on the bottom is March 20th, famously C19 correction, through October of 2020. And what we can see is this was our spring in Wyckoff. You go selling climax, secondary test, and your spring. This is why I was so confident that the bottom was in. And then you immediately go on an automatic rally. You spring from here to an automatic rally. You actually top out with your sort of twin tower candles here in August. Same thing over here, twin tower candles in August. You have a 3-week correction from August into September. This was about a 20% correction. I'll put it over here so you guys can see it a bit better. But from this August peak, you had about a 20% correction before you started to turn things around, making higher highs and higher lows. And right now, we're about 3 weeks into this skid. Now it's about a 13% correction or so. But and I'll bring this over here a bit so we can see what the actual numbers are. But this is going on 20 days now, and this is a 13% correction. You could make an argument like, hey, we're actually going to do the full 20%. And, I'll listen to that. That would mean that, we might have another, 5% to the downside. That would put us at about $100,275. I don't anticipate that because with Bitcoin, as time goes on, you really get diminishing returns. So Bitcoin's not going to make violent moves to the upside like it used to. And the same thing, the bear market was only 77%, where the time before that was 85%. The time before that was 90. The time before that was 95. The time before that was 99. So diminishing returns as we go, but structurally performing the same thing. Just like the C19 correction was a 60% correction, and this was a 36% correction into the April tariffs. But the interesting thing that took place was a lot of the same, where, September is pretty flat and boring, you could argue. And pretty much from why I think that it's repeating the sort of the exact same thing is you have your correction, 3-week correction, and then the October full moon, October 1st. From that point, September was a pivot month, which is exactly what I think is going to happen this time. There's going to be lots of volatility, upside, downside, grabbing liquidity both ways. But from the end of September, I think it is going to be a pivot month, and I think we are going to be rocking and rolling. Now, not necessarily for Bitcoin. However, for the altcoins, Total 2, Total 3, others, I think is going to do the exact same thing. And I do anticipate Bitcoin to start to accumulate its way out of here and have some volatility in September, followed by October and November performing just like the historical average, which we have been doing. And I really think October and November is going to be the most crazy time. And it's always like this. Like, just think about in 2020 as well. Imagine getting a 60% correction and just being dead and boring. And, a 60% correction here, followed by a little bit of life, followed by losing it all, chopping sideways, grueling, and then you finally go off and away. So that's my update for Bitcoin. We'll take a look at XRP and the altcoins. Generally, though, what we talked about last was Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin. That is still the case. That's a very quiet domino that has fallen. Ethereum is up 50% while Bitcoin is at the same exact range. That is a massive, massive big deal. Hard to overstate. I do want to look at XRP and then, I'll give you guys my closing thoughts with that. XRP to me does have more of a clear Wyckoff reaccumulation schematic. I talked about this on my short earlier, but a reaccumulation schematic follows like this. You go into an accumulation schematic, which is what we got over here. Selling climax, your spring, go into your sign of strength, bear trap, followed by a big breakout to the upside. That is Wyckoff accumulation. And then reaccumulation is after a big breakout. You go into what's called reaccumulation. And that's where you get your buying climax, your selling climax, your automatic reaction. You get your creek into either the LPS or the spring. And you have this critical level down here that holds as support. And I'll show you what the traditional system looks like. Here is one of the major ones where you go big run up, buying climax. This is your big resistance level that you're fighting with. You go to the upside, you get your creek, and then you jump the creek, which for XRP would be about $3.25. That is one major one. And then the other one, which it looks more like all the lines of what we're doing, basically the exact same thing, but except the creek, you get a spring, which is one lower low, which is a trick for traders. So I got my eyes on about $2.65 for XRP, jumping the creek to about $3.25, and then finally going to about $5, as high as $8 and $12 for XRP. This, in my opinion, is going to be a big deal for, the Bitcoin dominance to continue to fall, which is having a green day today, which is to be expected. We're not going to go down in a straight line. Ultimately, this is still a major downtrend on the daily. We talked about the moving averages my last video, and that's a big deal. Like, we've officially crossed into an official bear market for Bitcoin dominance. Having a green day, that's not the end of the world. You'll have many of them, even us getting all the way up to 59% wouldn't be weird, but ultimately Bitcoin dominance is in a bear market right now, and Ethereum is up 50% over Bitcoin. Major dominoes are falling. In my opinion, there's going to be lots of volatility. It's going to be a scary ride, but now is not the time to be shaken from your positions. But the important thing is, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're new here, I do the videos almost every single day, so make sure you guys subscribe, hit that bell icon so you never miss a video. Peace.